rings and silk garments. How do we know that these things have been prohibited? Yani, what's the evidence that these things have been prohibited? Just general like that. So yeah, but I'm looking for be specific, inshallah. It's in the hadith. Nah, keep going. This is another. Nah, ahsant. Huh? Ahsant. You're right. Now, give me the narration. I'm looking for the narration. Anybody know the narration? Narration, Messenger of Allah came out, Ikhwan. It mentioned the narration he had in one hand he had dhahab, he had gold. In the other hand he had harir. Shaykh al-Albani authenticates this. In the other hand he had silk. Prophet said, Hadhan haraman ala rijal ummati, that these two things have been made impermissible for the men of my ummah. Halal inathiha, yani permissible for the women or the females of my ummah. So that's what I was saying, that I wanted this to be specific, because if you say prohibited for the men. As for the women, it is permissible. It's permissible for the women to wear from these masks. For the men, prohibited for them to wear from the likes of this. Allah yabarik fikum. So then the Shaykh, he says after this, Ikhwan, tarku salam ala ahl al-ahwa. He says that the leaving off of the salams of the people of desires, al-murad bil-ahwa huna al-bid'ah. What is intended, Ikhwan, by desires here is innovation. Innovation, the people of innovation. Now, there's a question that could be asked, and this question actually was asked. This is an important question, Ikhwan, because when we read this chapter and the chapter that preceded it, what we notice is that the narrations are in connection to, not to innovations. The wearing of saffron was an example, one of the hadiths that we mentioned, and the wearing of gold rings for the men, silk garments. These things were mentioned as those things that the Prophet ﷺ abandoned salams for those people. The other narration, for example, is the narration of Ka'b, who didn't, for example, go to Tabuk, to the expedition. So these are matters of ma'asiyah, these are matters of sins. So the question is, how do we then apply that to innovation? Because that's the chapter, right? Mujanaba ahlawa wa bughdhum. Avoiding the people of innovation and hatred of them. So how do we apply that to innovation? So this question was asked of Shaykh Ahmed al-Najmi. As we said, it's a very important question. It's a good question as it relates to this. Anybody have an answer for this, by the way, before I read the Kalam of Shaykh Ahmed al-Najmi? In the back. Why are you way in the back, by the way? Go ahead and answer the question. There you are. Hey. تفضل. أيوة. But here, in particular, the narrations that we're reading are not connected to innovation. They're specific in sins. So the question that I'm asking, and the question that the person asks, is how do we sort of extract from that innovations? And the brother, he mentioned, it's a good point, that if a person is abandoned and left off for sins, and innovation is worse than that, then how much more leaving them off? Leaving off the people of innovation will be for all the more reason. It will be foremost. It will be first before leaving off the people of sins. That's the shadow of the point. So the Shaykh, he was asked this question, Ikhwan. He was asked, في باب مجانبة الأهواء يعني وترك السلام عليهم, and the abandonment of the people of desires and the leaving off of salams or salutations. He says there comes a number of narrations fil ma'asiyah, a number of narrations connected to sins, So how do we extract? How does the author, the musannif, extract from these narrations al-hukm alladhi dhakarahu fi tabweebihi, that which he has used in his chapter headings regarding the people of innovation? Now look what Shaykh Ahmed Najmi says, Ikhwan, in response to this good question. Al-haqiqa hadha su'alun ham. He said, in reality, this is a good question. Shaykh said this is an important question rather. He said, وَالنَّبِي صلى الله عليه وسلم لم يرد السلام على عمار بن ياسر, that he did not return the salams to Ammar ibn Yasir لكونه كان مخلقا, as we said, that he was wearing the saffron. والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يرد السلام على ذلك الرجل الذي أتى وقد لبس حلق ذهب. And also he did not return the salam to the man who was wearing the gold ring. والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لم يرد السلام على الوفد الذين لبسوا الحرير وتختموا بالذهب. And he also did not return the salams to that delegation that was wearing silk and was also wearing gold rings. وتلك معاصٍ. And Shaykh Ahmed Najmi, he says, and these are sins. These are sins. Now listen to this. وكذلك هجر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لزينب بن جحش. And this narration, يعني Shaykh Al-Albani says is not authentic. على كل حال. وتلك معاصٍ. And these are sins. إذن فكيف يستدل بهذه على هجر المبتدعين. So the Shaykh says, so therefore how do we use these narrations as a proof for the abandonment of the people of innovation? These are sins that we have just talked about. So again, how do we apply these to the abandonment and the boycotting of the people of innovation? Shaykh Ahmed Najmi says, وأقول, I say, إنه إذا وجب هجر العاصي مع أن معصيته أقل من البدع. Listen to this. He said, if it is obligatory to abandon that sinner in the way that we saw in the narrations, with the fact that sin is less than innovation. Now, Ikhwan, I want to make sure that we're clear on something here. Quite often when we read these points and the likes of these statements, and this is a principle that we know in the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll find that people say or claim that we make light of sin. That is not the point here. The point of the Shaykh is not to make light of sin. Clearly we see the reaction that the Prophet ﷺ had to those who had done these actions. So that's not our point. Our point is not to make light of sin. The point is to show the severity of innovation. The point is to show the severity of innovation. For everything is given its proper place, ya ikhwan. So we're not saying, ikhwan, and we do not understand that sin is a light thing, is an easy thing. One does whatever one wants to do. We know the narration, ikhwan, of Ibn Mas'ud in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, where it mentions that the believer, the true believer, he sees his sins as if he is at the base of a mountain, and that mountain is about to fall down, avalanche upon his head. That's how the believer sees his sins. Well, fajr, as for the wicked person, the evil, wicked sinner, he sees his sins like a dhubab, yani like a fly. It lands on his nose, he goes hakadha like this, and it flies away. And he of no real import, of no real concern to him are his sins. So the true believer, Ikhwan, is broken up about his sins. He sees his sins as a serious thing because he understands the greatness of the one that he is disobeying. So this is not a point to say that sins are a light thing, a small thing. It's a serious thing, Ikhwan, but the shadow of the point is the severity of innovation. And the innovation is more severe, it is worse than these sins that we are mentioning, as we'll see momentarily from Shaykh Ahmed Najmi, inshallah ta'ala, as we'll read from him momentarily, inshallah ta'ala. He says, مَا عَنَّ مَعَصِيَتُهُ أَقَلْ مِنَ الْبِدْعَةِ, with the fact that his sin is less than innovation. فَهَجْرُ الْمُبْتَدِعِ أَوْلَى وَأَعْظَمُ. He says, so the abandonment, the boycotting of the people of innovation is greater, it's foremost, it has greater precedence. لأن المبتدع أشد من العاصي, because the innovator is worse, more severe than the sinner. And this, ikhwan, is a principle from the principles of Islam. And again, that does not mean we make light of sin. That is not what is intended here. I want to keep reiterating that point, so that people can, inshallah ta'ala, ikhwan, they won't stop saying it, but inshallah ta'ala, we clarify at any rate that we are not saying that sins are a light thing, that sins do not harm. There's no question that sins harm. How many, as Ibn Qayyim mentions, ikhwan, in his tremendous work, Ad-Dawud Dawa, and other works, ikhwan, how many nations were destroyed, ikhwan, because of their ma'asi, because of their sins and their disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? They earned them the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and their destruction. So that is not, ikhwan, the point that we're making, but rather, as we're seeing here from the Shaykh, that the abandonment of the people of innovation is first and foremost. And because of the severity of innovation. He says, because the mubtadi is ashad min al-asi, because the innovator is worse. And I don't apologize for that statement. The innovator is worse. The sinner is bad, ikhwan, no question regarding that. But the innovator is worse. We don't apologize for saying that, ikhwan. So he says after this, al-asi tajidu yakhsha min ma'asiyati. And this is the reality for the most part, ikhwan. This is what you find. that the sinner is one who yakhsha min ma'asiyati, he is afraid due to his sins. This is what you find for the most part. Sheikh Rabi', he mentions it, that you find the person of sin for the most part, he's broken about what he does, so he hides it. And this is the reality. Most of the people who sin, they try to hide it in the dark, hide it in the night. They tiptoe around. They don't, they're not openly doing it, because for the most part, they fear the people finding out that which they are doing. يخشى من معصيته, as the Shaykh mentioned, Shaykh Ahmed Najmi. يستحي من ذكرها. He is shy. He is ashamed that it be mentioned about him. Hey, the Muslim is ashamed. He don't come to the masjid and just want the people to know he's doing this and doing that. He tries to hide it, tries to cover it. This is the reality, of most of the people as it relates to this affair. وهو يهم دائما أنه يتوب ويرجع عنها. And he's always, I got to get myself together. You constantly hear this, from the person. I'm going through something right now. Make dua for me, akhi. Inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to get myself together. This is what you hear from the people, in many instances as it relates to the affairs of sin. لكن المبتدع, however, the innovator, on the flip side, لا يمكن يتراجع أو يستحي من بدعته. The innovator, it's not possible that he would be shy from his innovation or return from it. هذا هو المعروف. This is known. Why? Because he believes what he is upon to be the truth. That's the difference between the sinner and the person from the people of innovation. The sinner doesn't believe that what he is doing, drinking intoxicants or whatever, he don't believe that that's halal in the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah ta'ala, he doesn't believe that. He doesn't hold that to be deen. And like the Sufiya, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah and others have mentioned it from the Sufiya, are those who take, for example, dancing and music as acts of ibadah. Sins. As acts of ibadah. From the likes of the Sufiya. But in general, you don't find the person, the sinner, holding to that which he is doing from sins from the religion of Islam, or a good thing. As we said, they hide it, shy, ashamed regarding it. But as for the innovator, he believes it to be from the deen. He believes it to be from the religion. So therefore, why would he return from? Why would he be shy about it? Why would he be shy to practice something that he believes to be from the religion of Islam? Rather, they defend it. Rather, they hold fast to it. Rather, they adhere to it. And if anyone says anything besides it, they will oppose them. And in some cases, they will physically turn against them. But one of the people of the past said, that no one has innovated except that they have made the sword permissible. That no one has innovated in the religion except that they have made the sword permissible, meaning they have made the blood of the Muslims permissible. Why? They will fight and kill for their ideology. They will fight and kill for their innovation. And this is what we know about the people of innovation. This is what we know about the people of desires, that they are ready and prepared to strap bombs to their bodies in defense of their falsehood. This is the reality of their affair, ya ikhwan barafikum. This is what the Shaykh says. This is huwa ma'ruf. This is something that is known. وَإِذَا كَانَ الْهَجْرُ حَصَلَ عَلَى هَؤُلَاءِ. So if abandonment happened with those who fell into, as we said, the putting of saffron on the hand, or wearing the gold ring, or wearing the silk garment, he said if the abandonment took place, if the abandonment took place for those individuals, ikhwan, فَإِنَّهُ مِنْ بَابِ أَوْلَى أَنْ يَكُونَ فِي الْمُبْتَدِعِينَ. Then for all the more reason it would take place with the people of innovation. For all the more reason it would take place with the people of innovation. And there's no question, ikhwan, when the people say that we have to be gentle, there's no question, ikhwan, that gentleness has its place. There is no question that gentleness has its place in the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a great, tremendous affair, the affair of gentleness in the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But as Shaykh al-Uthaymeen, ikhwan, he mentions in the tafsir of the Quran, that the meaning of al-hikmah is what? وَضَعَ الشَّيْءِ فِي مَحَلِّهِ. Putting everything in its proper place. So just like there's a time for gentleness, and there is no doubt about that, there's also a time for shiddah. There's also a time for harshness. Harshness also has its place. And as we see from these narrations, ikhwan, that sternness has its place in the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we find from these narrations of the Messenger of Allah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So he wanted to read that, ikhwan, that answer to that question, so as to be a reminder for us in this regard. And that the treatment of the people of innovation must be something that we are aware of and mindful of, heedful of. So now, ikhwan, we continue in the chapter Bab fi Luzum as-Sunnah. In the chapter, ikhwan, in the adherence to the Sunnah. The chapter concerning